You're taking care of business with Marty and Clay on Bakersfield's right choice for Saturday Talk. Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.
We are back on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180. Our in-studio guest is our own Assemblywoman, Shannon Grove. Shannon, we've got a couple calls on the line, but before we take our first call, I just wanted to thank you for this. I can remember being a talk show host in Los Angeles 20-some-odd years ago, and for us to get an assembly person in, we had to go down to Orange County.
Oh.
Not necessarily. Well, let's face it. In Los Angeles, you've got a lot of Democrats that wouldn't necessarily want to come on a show like this for obvious reasons. But on that note, let's take line one. We have Lou, and she has a question on the redevelopment agencies. Lou?
Yes, thank you for taking the call. I'm glad you're on the air. They changed the programming on your station a little bit. But what I wanted to say is redevelopment agency is something that was designed to collect property taxes by selling those that were abandoned cheaply in order to get them back on the tax rolls. Now, the way that this is, the schools would normally, the schools and the police departments and service districts, whatever the legislature provides for in their designation of the use of the taxes, would receive this money that it would not be going to redevelopment agency. The redevelopment agency is not operating here as it was designed to do initially. And I would like this money, which Governor Brown has proposed to go to the schools, be able to go to the schools as property owners have a right to expect, rather than some private enterprise. Even though there are people who maybe think they're getting jobs, it's not something that is set up by the government. And we need to be saving money and put it to the use for which it is intended.
Rose, did you have a question, or do you just want to make a statement?
Well, I didn't specify at the time. I did say what I wanted to say.
Oh, good. Thank you,
to your moderator there for taking the calls about the redevelopment agency, and she is attacking the use of the monies which the government has a right to expect it to be used for.
Okay.
But I thank you for allowing that.
Oh, Lou, thank you very much. Well, I see a question there, and let me run with that for you, okay? Thank you for the call, Lou. Appreciate it. Okay, so Shannon, do you think a lot of the cities have used the redevelopment money for what it should have been used for?
I think that some of the districts that I represent, like Tehachapi and Bakersfield and Ridgecrest, I know that Tehachapi has used a lot of their redevelopment dollars to promote great positive projects for that mountain community. And then right here in Bakersfield, we have Mill Creek Park, we have the Maya Theater. We've taken blighted areas and we've turned it into great places for our citizens. And so if there is fraud, waste, and abuse, then those things need to be addressed on those specific issues, but not as a punishment of a whole.
It's funny. I was attending a meeting where they talked about some of the abuses in the system, in the redevelopment agency system. And there are some cities that didn't use the money specifically for what it was designed for. They didn't go through all the procedures and everything. And there's a whole set of procedures that you have to use before you start spending the money. And my understanding is the governor is going to highlight some of those cities that abuse the process rather than looking at the Tehachapis and the Bakersfields that really use the money specifically for what it was intended to be for.
That when he does that, though, that furthers his cause of taking everyone's money. Right. Instead of highlighting the good things, he'll highlight a few of the negatives.
This is true. We're having a conversation with Shannon Grove on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180. Mike, you had a question on taxes?
Yeah, I do. Just you have a great show, by the way. Just wondering what Ms. Groves thinks after all is said and done, that our taxes actually are going to go to. I know she said we got a little bit of a pay raise in the short term, but in the long term, we're really going to take a hit. And I'm kind of wondering what she thinks it may set at. And Sacramento, is their game plan to just drive every business out of the state?
Absolutely.
And totally turn it into a welfare state?
Absolutely.
And then who is going to provide the money in the long run to pay the taxes because they're driving everybody out that pays taxes. So just,
Mike,
I appreciate
thank you.
your show, and thank you, Million.
Mike, thank you very much for your question. Right now, employers pay federal, state, FICA, Medicare, SDI, FUTA, SUI, EDD, local tax, city tax, property tax, personal property taxes, corporate tax, county tax, employers' training tax, and sales tax. And the list goes on and on and on. And individuals pay their personal income taxes. They get their net wages, and then they pay for gas tax, sales tax, fuel tax. You name it, you guys pay taxes. So we're all double, triple, and quadruple taxed. Money that's coming down under Governor Schwarzenegger, we had a $25 billion tax increase, which some has expired as of January 1st, which is the personal income tax, which actually allowed individuals working to take home a small increase in their paycheck. Mr. Brown is looking to reinstate that higher income tax along with $50 billion in other taxes. And then also with AB 32, which is the greenhouse gas bill that is going to come into effect in 2012, parts of it, the first initial just for administrative cost, according to UC Berkeley, it's going to cost $3.4 billion on taxpayers to just implement the administrative cost of that.
And don't die because you'll see some additional taxes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Lou? Is Lou still with us? Or
No,
Mike's
gone. Mike, thank you so much for the call.
Thank you, Mike.
Let's open the lines up because actually we had those two calls in without even announcing the lines. Our number is 842-5376 or 842-KERN. Shannon, speaking of civility, it's interesting because, you see this a lot in politics where if they can't attack the message, they're going to attack the messenger.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you got shot at this week.
Yeah, but I got shot at by the communist newspaper, the Los Angeles Times. So, that's really okay with me. And I'll probably get shot at for that statement, too. But you know what? The truth is the truth.
The communist newspaper?
The LA Times.
That.
I thought that was the New York Times.
It is.
Both of them.
Or the Los Angeles Times.
Or the Chicago.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to mention any newspapers. We're blessed to have the paper we have here in Bakersfield.
Okay.
How about them Dodgers? There's speaking about our local paper, there was actually two articles, one on top of the other today that kind of got to me a little bit. One had this optimistic tone about how wonderful things are going in the general economy, and then the second article right below it talked about the unemployment rates in Kern County, and some of the numbers were staggering.
Before you go on, I want it on record that I enjoy the Bakersfield Californian.
Do you really?
Yeah, I really do. I get it every morning and read it from cover to cover. And that's how I find out about all these things that Shannon's doing up in Sacramento.
Well, I don't have any particular heartburn with the Californian. I know a lot of people do, but then again, you have to remember I'm used to the aforementioned paper by Shannon when I lived down in Southern California, and I had my run-ins with that particular paper because they have a habit of making sure liberal causes are on the front pages.
Absolutely.
And conservative causes, if they're mentioned at all, are mentioned on the back page. So I've had a run-in with them several times.
Back to your question, Marty.
Back to my question. Repito la pregunta, por favor. Back to the question. Looking at cities like, Arvin, 40%. Isn't that mind-boggling? Wasco, 30%. Luckily, places like Tehachapi's at 10%. Ridgecrest is 9.9, which isn't great. That's the good news, unfortunately. Shafter, 28.9.
Wasco, 30.
Yeah, it's frightening. What are these clowns thinking in Sacramento?
I couldn't tell you. We took to the governor. I personally took to the governor, and every time I saw him at an event, I asked him about releasing permits from the Division of Oil and Gas because in Kern County we have a lot of energy producing companies. And we have a supervisor at the Division of Oil and Gas named Elena Miller who is not issuing permits. She says it's not within her jurisdiction. She doesn't understand it. She's more an environmental person versus an engineering person that understands the oil industry. So it's somebody in charge of an agency that is not adequate or efficient enough to issue permits. We have about 100, just on the top 1%, we have 120 permits that would create almost 4,000 energy jobs in Kern County alone. Now, when you produce an oil field job, it doesn't mean that's all the jobs that are created. Think about the sandwich truck driver that's going to drive out and feed the people. Think about stationery companies that are going to be selling paper, pens. It's a ripple effect. Plus, you have first, second, and third tier contractors. So if we could get these permits released, we would create private sector jobs that are good and well-paying jobs. But we can't get them. We can't get these permits released. We have been beating up on Elena Miller. I say beating up in a political sense. And we have been working with the governor's office trying to get him to at least explore the opportunity of getting these private sector jobs. We could eliminate a lot of this unemployment. And then, of course, raises the tax base. People are working. People are buying products. It's just better for our economy. So the message needs to be private sector job creation. And we have a hard time getting that with this administration and the liberals that are in charge of that building up there.
Mm-hmm. We are having a conversation with our Assemblywoman, Shannon Grove. We'll be back in a minute on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.